Hi everyone, myself Dr. M. Lakshmi Prasad, working as an associate professor in the Department of Data Science in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. So in this video, I'm going to discuss about what are the different types of missing data. So once we collected data from multiple sources like primary source and secondary sources. So this in previous video, I discussed how the missing data is going to be handled. So there are so many methods are available for handling that missing data. Now in this video I'm going to discuss about what are the different types of missing data. So according to Donald Rumsfeld, so missing data is looks like a big problem. So since many data is going to be gathered from different sources, so definitely there may be a chance of getting the missing data. Then how we're going to deal that data, then what kind of data, what kind of missing data it is, I would like to know that. So for that, what I have to do? So definitely the missing data looks like a big problem. So according to Donald Rumsfeld, so he is telling that there are no knowns. So these are the things we know that we know. So there are no knowns, that is to say there are the thing we know we don't know, right? So but there is always known unknown knowns, and these are the things we don't know. So according, he is stating the missing data like this. So what is the missing data actually? So in a table there may be a different types of missing data. So all the time the missing data is going to be deal with the missing data. So that has been a challenge in the data analysis context. So whatever the data we're going to analyze, so by seeing the table itself we can able to identify what type of data it is, whether it is a what kind of missing data it is, right? So missing data should becomes a big problem in the analysis stage itself before going to the next step. So here we are having some methods that are available for handling this missing data. So when we're all these methods able to do that, we have to minimize the bias and then maximize the use of available information and then good estimation of uncertainty. So these are the things we have to be maintained while methods what we are going to apply for handling that missing data. So by seeing this table, you can able to identify. So the missing data is going to be categorized in three ways. So first one is that unit or non-responsive missing data. So what is unit non-responsive missing data? Suppose if the missing data is going to be occurred in the same row, right? So at the time, this entire thing, what is the part that is treated as an yellow, that is going to be treated as unit non-responsive missing data. And then, so second one is that item non-responsive missing data. What is item non-responsive missing data? So in this table, so one particular column is having some missing value at this time. This type of data will be considered as item non-responsive missing data. All the time here in this table, the missing data is going to be represented as a yellow form. And then whenever the missing data is obtained entire column, so that one should be treated as latent variable or unobserved variable. So like this, the missing data is going to be categorized in different ways, right? So one is unit non-responsive. So unit non-responsive means where a particular row is having more than one missing value, so that entire row is going to be treated as a unit non-responsive missing data. And third one is that second one is that item non-responsive missing data. Item non-responsive missing data means, so whenever the particular column is having some missing value, so that value is going to be treated as an item non-responsive missing data. Similarly, so whenever the entire column is having some missing values of more than one, so that entire column is going to be treated as a latent variable or can able to treat it as unobserved variable, right? So the missing data is going to be deal with is going to be classified into different types, which is going to be handled by the following methods. So what are the methods we're applying? So all the methods is going to be minimize the bias and maximize the use of available information, and good estimates of uncertainty is to be maintained all the time. That should be p value and then confidence interval like this, right? So missing data are nothing but the observation when we intend to make but we could not, right? So for that, what you have to do, you have to answering only certain questions to the questionnaire. So whenever there may be a chance of getting the missing data from the observer, so at the time what you have to do is all the time you have to be answering only the certain questions to the questionnaire. So whatever the question that is difficult to them, we should not be, mostly we have to avoid it. And then not measuring the temperature due to the extreme cold, this is also one of the type of observation. And then not answering income due to being too rich, right? So these are the observations where the missing data may come, but we have to be make it, but we could not it, right? So when we have a missing data, so our goal remains the same with what it was if have a complete data, right? So the analysis is going to be more complex in this case. So now how I'm going to denote this missing data. So all the time this missing data is going to be represented in the form of SAS, or I can able to represent in the form of S plus, or I can able to represent it as or NA or not available, or I can able to represent this missing data as minus 9999 or something like this. I can able to make it some clear notation is going to be maintained, so where the missing data is appearing, right? So the missing data is nothing but some observations who have to be carried out. So for that observations we have to answering only the certain questions to the questionnaire, and then not measuring the temperature due to extreme cold, and not answering income due to being too rich. So these are the some of the observations where we can able to get the missing data. So when we have this missing data, our goals remain the same all the time. And then at the time what will happen is the analysis is going to become more complex, and then how are going to denote this missing data. So here all the time we have to denote the missing data with the fault of SAS notation, or can able to use it of S plus notation, or I can able to make use of RNA or NA notation. And also I can able to write in the form of minus 9909 or something like this to indicate the missing data in the table. So what is this missingness mechanism actually? So before going to start that analysis with the incomplete data, so what you have to do is all the time you have to be clarify the nature of missingness mechanism. So what kind of missingness mechanism we have to be applied for that, what nature of the missing data have to be identified, and then the causes of values being missed we have to be identified. And previously there should be some common belief that the mechanism become random, but it was really it was a thought actually. So generally there are two types of notations that have to be accepted for missingness mechanism by all the researchers. So first one is that ignorable and non-ignorable missing mechanism. Suppose if the missing mechanism is ignorable, then we don't have to care about it, we can ignore it confidentially before missing data analysis. But if it is not, we have to model the mechanism, also part of the parameter estimation. And then suppose if the identifying the missing mechanism with some statistical approach is going to be obtained, then it should still become a tough problem. So that what we have to try to develop some diagnosis procedure on the missingness mechanism in a as a important research topic here, right? So the missingness mechanism is to be classified into two types. So first one is that ignorable missing mechanism and non-ignorable missing mechanism. So once when the missing mechanism is going to operate, so before starting any analysis with the incomplete data, so you have to be clarified. So whether what nature of mechanism is it is. So then only you have to identify what type of mechanism is going to be identified, whether you have to apply ignorable missing mechanism or not ignorable missing mechanism. Suppose if the missing mechanism is ignorable, then what you have to be take care of about it, and then you have to ignore it confidentially before the missing and data analysis is going to be performed. So if not, what you have to do, you have to be model the mechanism and also should be as a part of the parameter estimation. And second case is that if we are going to identify this missing mechanism with the statistical approach, then at the time what we have to say, then it should become a tough problem. So at the time what we have to do is we have to try to develop some diagnosis procedure we have to be applied on the missingness mechanism as an important research topic here. So the continuation of missingness mechanism. So according to Rubin 1976, specified there are three types of assumptions that have to be made on the missingness mechanism. So right, so this missingness data is going to be classified into three categories. So first one is that missing completely at random, and missing at random, and missing not at random. So missing completely at random is going to be noted as MCAR, and missing at random is going to be noted as MAR, and missing at not at random is going to be treated as MNAR, right? So these are the different types of assumptions of missingness mechanism. So when we consider MCAR and MAR, that is missing completely at random and missing at random. So in a class or ignorable missingness mechanism, or a class of ignorable missingness mechanism, but MENAR is a class of non-ignorable missing mechanism, right? The first two should comes under ignorable missing mechanism, and the last one should comes under non-ignorable missing mechanism. So in previous slide itself, I told the missingness mechanism is going to be classified into two types, right? So ignorable and non-ignorable, right? Then this missing data is going to be classified based on this missing mechanism, whether it is a non-ignorable or ignorable. So first one is the missing completely at random, and missing at random comes under missingness mechanism, whereas MNAR comes under non-ignorable mechanism. MCAR assumptions is generally difficult to meet in reality, but it assumes that there is no statistically difference between incomplete and complete cases, right? So MCAR is generally difficult to meet in reality, but it assumes that there is no statistical significant difference between the incomplete cases and then complete cases. So let's see what are the different types of missing data. So just now I said unit non-responsive and item non-responsive. What is the difference between them? Just right. So let's see the example here. On left side I have one table. In this table what I am going to identify, so I'm getting the missing data for the ID 458, and again I'm getting the missing ID under Q2 variable of the same ID 458, and again I'm getting the missing data in Q3 also for the same ID. So at the time what I have to do, I have to treat it as a entire column is entire row is having some missing data. So what I have to do, I have to treat it as this one as unit non-responsive missing data. And what is this item non-responsive missing data? So let's see the example here. So here also I'm going to maintain same table, but I'm getting the missing data for ID 457 in Q2 variable, and similarly for I'm getting the missing data in Q1 for the variable 458. I'm getting another missing data for the ID 459. So like this. So this and all this type of missing data will be treated as a non-item non-responsive missing data. And suppose if a particular row is getting missing data of same row is getting more than more than one missing data, so at the time I have to treat it as unit non-responsive missing data. And suppose if the sum of the rows is having some missing data in different rows, so at the time I can able to treat it as item non-responsive missing data. So is it clear, right? So whenever a row is completely having more than one missing data, that should be unit non-responsive. So if I'm going to identify missing data in particular rows, that and all will be treated as a item non-responsive missing data. So what are the some of the examples of unit non-responsive examples of unit non-responsive missing data? Suppose the person who is not at home. Suppose I want to identify the person. I want to know the details. So at that time, what I have to do, I have to make a call to that person. But the person, at the same time, the person is not at home. So what will happen? I'm unable to get the details of the person. So at the time, this type of data missing, we can able to treat it as unit non-responsive missing data. Similarly, I want to know the details of the person. I called him, but The person who does not pick up the phone should also one of the example of unit non-responsive missing data. I can unable to get the details of that. Suppose a particular application or some person details I want to know. So that for that I have to call him, but he's not lifting the phone. So what will happen? I'm unable to get the details of the person. And similarly, the person who hangs upon you and then read the dates before the study, and then the country you could not get data like this. So these are some of the examples of unit non-responsive missing data. And next one is that item non-responsive missing data. So what are the examples? Suppose there was some interview, some questionnaire is going to ask some question, but the respondent is able to answer that I don't know, right? And then there may be a chance of refusal to respond the question also. And questions left blank also will also appear, and then failed measurement like this. So this and all will be considered as an item non-responsive missing data. So item non-responsive means suppose that some question is answering the questions at the time the respondent able to I don't know this like this. The result also comes under item non-responsive, and then that the respondent may also make some refusals to respond the question what the questionnaire asking, and then leaving the some questionnaires left blank, and then failed measurements. Suppose I'm unable to take the measurements very clearly, or sometimes I may fail to take it right at the time. You have to be considered as an item non-responsive missing data. So then what are the ways to deal with the missing data, right? So are you having any methods or not? I want to know that. So at the time, so what is the ways I can able to minimize the unit non-responsive missing data? Again, I have to call back if he is the person is not home. So that is one of the general method what I can able to apply, right? So I can again I have to call back if the person is not at home. And the next one is that refusal conversion. Suppose I have passed the conversion, but the person is unable to refuse it. So at that time I have to ask the another question, and don't mess up, and then make a clear and understandable questionnaire. So the questions what the person is asking, so the respondent is in a position to answer the question. So for that, like that, I have to answer the question, right? So that means the question what he's asking should be clear and then understandable. And then the polite request and incentives like this. So these are the ways, some of the ways of minimizing the unit non-responsive missing data. And then, so what are the ways for minimizing the item non-responsive missing data? So what for that what I have to do? What are the other ways? So for that, what do I have to do? I have to ask well-written questions, and then minimize the misunderstandings of the question, like cross-cultural example, or I can able to write in the form of standardized questions and non-standardized questions. I have to make a clear understanding, and then like this we have to minimize the misunderstandings of the questions, and minimize the skip patterns, and then use descendant measurement instruments, and know what you are doing, right? So these are some of the examples, some of the ways of handling the item non-responsive questions like previously I discussed, right? Item non-response, I don't know, refusal to respond, questions left blank, and failed measurement. So what are the ways I can able to do that? So for that, what I have to do, I have to write. So well written questions is going to be written, and then minimize the misunderstandings. So by doing a cross culture example, or I can able to make the questions into two forms like standardized and non-standardized, and minimize the skip patterns, and then use the descendant measurement instruments and know what you are doing. And so, what are the other ways or other methods what we're having for handling the missing data? So, right, so these methods are going to be classified in two types like deletion methods and imputation methods. So, deletion methods means where I can able to delete the variables or rows where I can able to get the missing data. That should be deletion method. And then imputation methods. So, imputation methods are nothing but substitution methods. So, these substitution methods are going to be applied for in two types like single imputation and then multiple imputation. So list-wise deletion methods. So list-wise deletion methods means what I have to do in a row. Suppose uh, one row is having the missing data here, So remaining is having some data. So at that time, what I have to do, I have to completely delete this row. That should be list-wise deletion. So similarly, uh, two consecutive rows is having the same data, right? So row 2 having missing data here and here, and the row 3 is also having missing data here and here. So the two adjacent or two consecutive rows having missing data, so then this case is going to be considered as pairwise deletion method. So pairwise means I can able to delete one of the row of this method. And variable deletion, so variable deletion means, so based on the importance of the variable of the application I have to consider it, and based on the so next one is that variable deletion method. So variable deletion method means, so in any application we are going to maintain the variables, right? So in that variable have to identify the variables having less importance, some variables are having more importance. So the less importance variable is going to be identified, and this particular row variable is going to be deleted based on that. And similarly, next one is that substitution methods. So here the single imputation method is again having some other methods like mean imputation, conditional mean imputation, and case mean imputation, right? So let's explain this one. So in mean imputation means, so here I'm going to maintain a data here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here I'm getting some values. Right. So this is the this is the these are the missing data what I get it. So mean imputation means, so mean imputation means what I have to do, I have to calculate the mean of this column, and what is the mean I'm getting here. So that value is going to be replaced with the missing data. And the next one is the conditional mean imputation. Conditional mean imputation means where I have to apply some conditional logics. So based on that, I have to fill the missing data. So if the condition is satisfied based on the, what is the value I'm getting here, so that one is going to be filled with the missing data. That should be conditional mean imputation. And case mean imputation means where you can able to use like as case statements. So case one, what will happen, what is the condition, and what are the statements is going to be executed, and what should be the case two, and what are the statements are going to be executed, like this. So based on the cases statements also I can able to fill the value what I'm getting here, that should be filled with the missing data. And regression imputation, so in regression imputation means here I'm going to maintain some equations. So based on the equations I'm getting some value, right? So that value is going to be filled with the missing data. And then last observation carried forward. So last observation carried more forward means, so I can able to fill what is the value I'm getting, so that value is going to be filled with the missing data, or I can able to take it the average of the next two columns, I have to take it out and then have to fill with the missing data. So that should be last observation carried forward. And the best case imputation and worst case imputation. So among this one, what is the best value, I have to take 50. So I can able to fill with the 50 is the best case imputation. And similarly, worst case means where I can able to fill the missing data with the worst case. So what is the worst case? 10 smallest value I'm taking as a worst case, then that value is going to be filled with the missing value. That should be the worst case imputation. So these are the some of the methods that are available for handling the missing data. So right, so here the missing data is going to be classified into three tabs. So first one is unit non-responsive missing data. So whenever the row is having the multiple missing values, then entire row is going to be treated as item non-responsive missing data. So whenever the item suppose if I'm getting missing values in some multiple rows, at that time that kind of missing data will be considered as item non-responsive missing data. Suppose the entire column is having the missing data more than one, that entire thing we have to treat it as latent variable and unobserved variable. So all the time we have to fill the missing data with either with SAS or SA plus notation or RNA notation or minus 99. So like this we have to make use of some special symbols, and then we have to fill with the missing data. So all the time we have to fill the missing data before going to done the analysis part. And then the missing mechanism is going to be classified into two types. So first one is that ignorable and non-ignorable missing mechanism. So in ignorable missing mechanism, we have to take care of missingness variables, so that should be confidentially ignored. Suppose in non-ignorable cases, we have to apply some diagnostic procedure on the missingness procedure. And then the missing data is going to be classified into three categories. So first one is that missing completely at random, missing at random, and the missing not at random. So missing completely at random and MAR comes under ignorable missingness mechanism, and MNER will comes under non-ignorable missingness mechanism. So here, what is the difference between unit non-responsive and item non-responsive? Suppose a particular row is having more than one missing value, that should be considered as unit non-responsive. If I'm getting the missing values in some other places of the table, that should be considered as item non-responsive. And what are some of the examples of that? The person who is not at home, the person who does not pick up the phone, like this. These are some of the examples of unit non-responsive. And then item responsive means some of the questions like I don't know, refusal to respond, questions left blank, failed to measurement, like this. And what are the ways you can able to handle it? So for that, what are the different things? So suppose if the person is not at home, so what you have to do, have to call back, and if he is not at home, and again you have to make the refusal conversion and then polite requests, incentives. And what are the ways of minimizing item non-responsive? For that, what you have to do, you have to write so well written questions and minimize the misunderstandings and minimize the skip patterns, like this. And these are the some other methods we are having for handling the missing data here. So we are having the deletion methods. So deletion methods means when I am getting the missing data in the tables, simply I can able to delete this row or column, whatever it may. That should be list-wise deletion. And pair-wise means if two consecutive rows is having the missing values, then one of the row is going to be deleted. And variable deletion, suppose if I'm going to get the missing value is more than one at a time in a particular variable itself, based on the importance of the variable, I have to take it out and I have to delete it. And then substitution methods. So whenever I'm going to get that missing data in a particular cell, I have to fill that with the mean imputation or conditional mean imputation or case mean imputation, right? And then I can also able to fill the missing data based on regression imputation. That means I can able to do some mathematical calculations. The value what I'm getting here, that should be filled with the missing data. And the last observation carried forward. So I can able to take the average of previous two columns of the same case. I have to take it out and then I have to fill with the missing value. And the next one is the worst case imputation. So where I'm getting the missing data, so I have to take it out what is the worst value and what is the best value. Suppose if I'm going to take the smallest value as the worst case, that value is going to fill with the missing data. And best case, I'm going to take it as a greater case, that one I have to fill with the missing data. That should be best case. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.